Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. Ooh, hello there.
Well, well, as I live and breathe, if it isn't Pinocchio.
Oh, hi, Jiminy.
What in the world are you doing down here?
Playing hide and seek.
I just don't believe it. And here I was, up all night just worried sick about you. Why, of all the Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, are you telling me the truth? Yes! Then tell me, what is this? It was a present. No fibbing now. You know you're not supposed to tell lies. A lie only grows and grows till you get caught. Plain as the nose on your face. But if you want something, why wait? Why not just take it? Oh my, who told you that? You need some advice from your conscience. That's right, you're my conscience, Jiminy. I'll never tell lies as long as you're around. You need to be good so you can become a real boy. You promised Geppetto you would, right? Oh, do you know where Father is? He's not with you? Jiminy, let's go find Father. Now hold on. There are all sorts of dangers and temptations out there. I'll go find Geppetto, so you just wait here. These fellows here will be helping me. We will? Well, shall we go, Sora? You could have asked us first. So that cutscene's actually completely optional. I actively didn't know it was there for several playthroughs even. But let's just say that might play a role into a future world. So last time we ended up exploring deeper into Traverse Town now that we have certain trinities that allowed us to get things like the Earthshine to get our first summon in Simba, as well as explored the 100-acre wood a little bit, but then specifically also told us to go ring the bell up here on top of the Gizmo shop 3 times. Now that we have red trinities, we can actively do just that. If it's your first playthrough or if you're on proud mode, I do recommend saving before doing this, though you might be able to get away with using the red trinity over here, ringing the bell 3 times that Sid talked about doing, and then leaving through the Dalmatian's house to reach the back of the hotel, routing through the hidden waterway back into Merlin's house to save. As overcomplicated as that process would be rather than just going to the accessory shop and then coming back here. But hey, I guess it might technically save some time or effort or something, I don't know. In most cases, what I tend to do is maybe change my setup, leave the room and re-enter it so that I kind of save the checkpoint, quote-unquote, like that in the case I'm coming up on something I know I might have trouble with. Let's ring that bell, why don't we? Just because Traverse Town is where we learned about keyholes doesn't mean it's excluded from having its own keyhole, though I can never remember if this one's actively required to finish the game or not. The guard armor returns, but largely it has no real new tricks for the moment. Meanwhile, you yourself have several new tricks you can take advantage of. I'd especially recommend just remembering that you can guard or dodge roll past any attack this thing has now, and it's not going to put up much of a fight. With that said, they're not just going to completely reuse this fight wholesale. There is something new here that will activate after you do just about enough damage. The real fight here is opposite armor. Worth noting, if you're having trouble with this fight, I believe you can actively leave the second district via most of the doors here and just come back in. With that said, if you've destroyed any of the new hands or new feet in the process, they will regenerate, and any health you've taken from the main body will also regenerate upon re-entering. Let's call in a friend, why don't we? This is Simba. You can charge him up to make him do more damage, but if his MP gauge runs out, he's gone. Which means he's about to be gone. Summons in this game are actively best used more towards the end game when you get certain abilities that can actively extend their stay, frankly. What the opposite armor decides to do against you attack-wise, similarly to the guard armor itself, will largely depend on what parts of it remain. While it has its legs, there's two attacks it can do, one of which we actually just saw, where it dashes forward and then does an upward kick with its new hand feet. Otherwise, it can also repurpose the guard armor's hand windmill just lower to the ground given the general body rearranging. Something this fight will also do is separate itself into two distinct pieces, the head and the feet hands, and the torso with the hand feet, which feels weird to say that way, but it's accurate technically. When it does this, you'll see the head and the feet hands actively team up to kind of spin the head around in a circle vertically until it slams on the ground. Thankfully, you can just parry that with a well-timed Keyblade swipe. In fact, basically every attack this fight has can be parried, albeit only one of them can actively be returned back at them. Speaking of which, here that is. While the torso back in the guard armor fight more or less acted as a Beyblade as an attack here and again, here in opposite armor, it acts as a cannon that'll fire a very large and very devastating projectile at you. But, as with many projectiles, a well-timed Keyblade swipe will just send it right back at the boss fight, and even, I think, technically stun it long enough you can get a lot of damage in. This specific arrangement, by the way, looks incredibly goofy. It's now just effectively a cannon with legs. Which, actually, thinking about how most, like, medieval cannons tend to look, that's actually just a cannon, isn't it, at that point? This is ultimately a harder fight than guard armor, especially because it's a lot more aggressive. But as you take down the various chunks of it, it just gets more and more easy to the point where it's really only harder, but only by the smallest amount. The extra tools you've gained by this point on top of your understanding of the game's mechanics really do also go a long way to help with that. But then that's how I would describe most boss fights in any RPG that's technically considered in the late early game, as redundant as that sounds. By this point, you understand a lot of what they have to do, and you're just waiting until the game steps it back up towards the actual mid-game, which this game will actively deliver on as we reach the next set of worlds. And for beating that boss, not only do we get a max item up, we also got stun impact. I'll talk more about the abilities we got at that level later. We've gotten a lot of accessories from boss fights, but this time we actually get a new spell, Arrow. This will have all incoming damage as long as the wind barrier is active over Sora or whoever you put it on. And we also get a Navigummy piece, so we can take that to Sid and get access to more worlds. So Stun Impact might sound familiar. That's because it is. While we only just got it now at level 18 because I chose the Dream Shield, Dream Rod users got that at level 6, hence why I talked about it back during Destiny Islands. For level 18 on the Dream Sword route, you get Tech Boost, and with the Dream Rod, you get Hurricane Blast, a neat combo finisher. Hey, got another navigation gummy there, eh? I'll bet you want it installed. Yeah, please. Looks like this is another one of those blocks that comes in sets. You gotta find the mate to this one. Actually, wait, no, I'm wrong. Hurricane Blast isn't a combo finisher. I'm thinking of a move from Kingdom Hearts 2. In this game, Hurricane Blast is just a straight-up combat ability. Effectively, if an enemy is under you or below you, Sora will do 3 downward somersaults with his Keyblade that do damage. Has a pretty good crit chance if memory serves, pretty powerful. Honestly, it's a pretty good one for combat in this game especially. The real limit on it is how much you actively like using Sora's aerial combat or combos in this game to begin with, where if you prefer his ground combos, you're probably not going to get much use out of it. With that said, there are several enemies that are mostly airborne, so you're probably going to end up using aerial combos a lot no matter what. And honestly, not for nothing, aerial combat should be kind of a focus in some of the later entries to an extent too, because Sora in Kingdom Hearts 2 with aerial combat can be pretty nuts. For now, though, we are actively done in Traverse Town, so it's time for us to head back to the world selection map and move on to our next world. But not before some notifications from some little chipmunks. There's a tournament being held at the Coliseum. I hear there's a great reward for the winner. So, if you just want to progress in the game's main plot, you want to go through the warp holes you can see between certain worlds now. You do that by doing a normal drive on the route next to them, specifically as seen here through the route between Traverse Town and Wonderland, or the one between Deep Jungle and Olympus Coliseum. But we now have several other chests and side quests we can clean up in the first set of worlds, so we're going to prioritize that. Plus, we can now take advantage of the warp drive ability Sid gave us a few parts ago to just directly warp to worlds we've already been to, saving some time in the gummy ship missions. My first goal is back here in Wonderland, specifically here in the Lotus Forest in two specific parts of it. Now that we have the Thunder Spell, we can actively take care of something that we saw, but we couldn't actively investigate. But along the way, well, I ran into some white mushrooms here, so I might as well try and get some Thunder Shards, Mystery Goos, or arts from them in specific. The arts I don't have from the ones here in Wonderland specifically are Thunder arts from you casting Thunder on them 3 times in a row. Worth noting, between the white mushrooms found here in Wonderland and the ones over in Deep Jungle, we can only get 4 of the arts of the 5 spells we currently have. We're not going to be able to see white mushrooms that use the arrow motion or even other spells until later worlds as it is. In fact, I want to say when I go back to Deep Jungle momentarily, I do end up getting Cure Arts while there. And hey, not for nothing, between the 13 free tech points with every single one of these I do successfully and the chance of a Mystery Goo they all will give me, that's less grinding I might need to do at the end of the game when it comes to synthesis farming. Plus, not for nothing, the MP bubbles they all throw out upon you successfully completing their minigame goes a long way when it comes to actually being able to do anything else in a world should you run into white mushrooms there. So, the thing we're here to actively investigate with the Thunder Spell is you might remember when we were going through the story here in Wonderland, there were 2 little arcs of flowers here in the Lotus Garden, one in an area right near the main entrance and one all the way in the distant area through the tilted section of the Bizarre Room. Now that we have the Thunder Spell, we can use it on those to make 2 chests spawn in and get some extra bonuses along the way. In the meanwhile, though, let's actively talk about another voice actor now that we've actively heard him talk enough, Jiminy Cricket. Jiminy Cricket in this game is voiced by Eddie Carroll, who I believe is the character's 3rd voice actor who took over sometime in the 70s. With that said, outside of being Jiminy Cricket, most of his career and filmography is being in 1 to 3 episodes of a show at a time. For instance, he was in an episode of the original Mission Impossible show, he was in an episode of the Andy Griffith Show, and he was in an episode of Frasier, just to name a few. Meanwhile, Jiminy's Japanese VA is Kaneta Kimotsuki. Outside of being the general Japanese dub voice for Jiminy prior to his death in 2016, he was also the voice of Max in Yellow Submarine, Schroeder in various Peanuts specials, Wilbur in the original Charlotte's Web adaptation, Cyborg 007 in various Cyborg 009 projects, and towards the tail end of his life, he was also often the voice of Tom in various Tom and Jerry movies. This further out arc to get is the more important one as it has Dalmatian puppies within it. The first one just had a Thundara G, which, hey, can go a long way because, that's just a decently powerful weapon, because when it comes to gummy blocks, if it's a thunder gummy of any kind, it's a cannon. If it's a fire gummy of any kind, all the way up to even more powerful spells, it's an engine type. And if it's like shield or something like that, it's just a standard block that you use to build the body of your gummy ship. That said, technically speaking, you can make your gummy ship as big or as small as you need to. Largely, I think you just need, at least an engine and a cockpit. Maybe you need a weapon on top of that. I forget the exact minimums, technically. So our most extensive stay for the moment is actually going to be here in Deep Jungle, as not only do I want to get the Cure Arts from the white mushrooms while I'm here, hence why I'm exiting and entering, I also want to go back to the top of Deep Jungle in order to access the slide down the tree branches. As now that we've finished the Deep Jungle plotline, that is now a minigame we can access that gives not only some decent rewards on its own, but in order to get the 100% marking, so to speak, we need to finish this. With that said, finishing this minigame can definitely be very awkward. The way this works is that as you go down the slide, there's now going to be fruit that you can grab. If you miss any, don't worry, you can actively just pause and hit the restart option, which will take you back to the top of the slide. That can lead to some issues the further into this minigame you get, but for right now, we won't worry about that too much. The fruits are generally placed in groups of 3 with a 10th on every layer hidden somewhere amongst them. Sometimes it's in a pretty easy to spot location, other times you won't notice it until it's already passing you by, and you have to just feel nothing but emptiness in your soul as you end up restarting the minigame completely. You can jump on these slide sections and attack with the Keyblade to get some extra height if you need to, but the big thing I recommend doing is combining holding the analog stick forward to speed up and holding back on it to brake, as there's times where that can help you either make certain turns better or make it to be able to grab certain fruits more easily. Upon grabbing the 10th fruit in the first section, we get an elixir, but from now on we need to get those 10 on top of the 10 in every subsequent section. Also, at the end of any given section of the tree slide, you do get thrown back to some other part of Deep Jungle. For instance, the first set always leads to the camp, but the second set will lead elsewhere, and it'll just go all around the world from there. For this LP, I do showcase every full run down the slide, but just for the sake of commentary flow and footage flow, I am speeding up every prior completed section on future runs, just so we're not in the same place for like 3-4 minutes in a video like that. And I'm not exaggerating there. If memory serves for the final run we do for the final level of this minigame, a full run from the start of the jungle slide all the way to the end is about 2.5 minutes, which means if you fail at the last second, you got a lot to redo, not for nothing. Now, what I can't quite remember is how much of this minigame you need to do in order to quote-unquote complete the minigame for Jiminy's Journal, because every minigame does have a point where it's considered as completed for the journal, usually reaching a certain score or time. I think you just need to have beaten all the records and gotten all the items here for this one. For grabbing all the first 20 fruits, we now get an AP up, which is always good to see because the stat boosting items are a real game changer in Kingdom Hearts 1. Upon completing this section and being ejected from it like we have to on our first run for every sector, we're going to be thrown out in the Hippo Pool area right before the vines. On that note, something I should mention pretty early in the game about Sora's stats is your stats max out at 100 for everything except for HP, where I think technically the max is 116 with certain accessories. But for your attack and defense stats specifically, there is a bit of a soft cap for those that don't know what that means. That's a term where in certain games, if you boost certain stats past a certain point, you're getting negligible returns. For your strength and attack stats specifically, largely you don't need to get them past 55 in the case you're stacking certain equipment pieces and all that. With the exception of 2 fights, though, where 2 specific fights you actively gain benefits up to 61 in either stat. What I'm effectively saying is, depending on how many stat boosting items you found throughout the game or how many you make later on in synthesis, there is a certain point where you maybe want to start investing them into Donald and Goofy over Sora, but for most of the main campaign, Sora should be your target for all of them, and AP ups should always go into him no matter what. For finishing the minigame up to the 30th fruit, you get a Dark Matter Synthesis item, really good to have. There's only so many of those in the game. And you also get ejected right out where we originally fought Clayton and Stealth Sneak. And hey, on the way back to the top of the jungle slide, I did end up finding another Black Ballad, and hey, I'll take some extra lightning stones if I can get some, like that one. Also worth noting, out of all of the rare Heartless quote-unquote in the game, white mushrooms are definitely the most common, but for some reason, in my own anecdotal experience, I swear the white mushrooms here at the camp are the most likely to show up. To the point where if I need to farm them for whatever reason, especially trying to get mystery goos for synthesis later on, the ones outside the tent are the ones I tend to use, especially considering the tent makes for a perfect respawn point if I want to leave the world and come back in to respawn them. So, the 4th section of the Jungle Slider is arguably the hardest because there's just something that's a bit of a lie about it. Specifically, the branches. This branch here, not actually there. Other branches in this minigame can stun you, make you potentially lose some time if you're going for certain records, but that branch there, I think maybe the one I just passed, completely fake. I don't know why that is, and it's actively really irritating because if you try to actively do a precise jump to hit the fruit that's on the other side of that branch, if you're not guaranteed to overshoot it, the precision needed to do so is so insane that it's never really going to work out consistently. That has irritated me for years. For collecting all 40 fruit up to that point, you get a defense up, and you're also ejected over by the waterfall caverns on the way back towards where the keyhole was. But also, I remembered on this trip back to the camp to leave the world that there's still one other recipe I haven't shown off here. Specifically, you can transform a potion into an ether using the equipment here at the camp. Specifically, it involves the test tubes on that table right there. For right now, though, it's time for us to talk about another Heartless I didn't get to mention on my first playthrough of Deep Jungle because we just didn't see it. These are Bouncy Wilds. Bouncy Wilds are, in effect, the long-range variant of Power Wilds. While Power Wilds are all in-your-face melee, Bouncy Wild's main attack is to fire a slingshot at you from a distance. With that said, as already evasive as Power Wilds already are, Bouncy Wilds take it even further, frequently running away from you outright if you approach them. This is where their other attack comes in. They can spawn in a banana peel. Anyone who steps on that banana peel slips, causing them to lose 80 money out of their wallet, though it can thankfully be recollected. Slight bonus is that this does also count for the bouncy wilds and power wilds themselves, so if you actively can make them fall into it, not the worst early game farm for cash. Similarly to how we used the stove in the distance to turn a potion into a high potion using the fire spell, by investigating those test tubes, you can put a potion in, hit it with the blizzard spell, and you get a whopping 2 ethers out of it, which honestly is a pretty worthwhile conversion, because if memory serves, if you want to buy ethers at the item shop in Traverse Town, I think they're much more expensive than potions. With that said, now we're on our final run on Jungle Slider, and this minigame is far from the worst thing in the game, honestly. With that said, on a first playthrough, it's definitely very aggravating because Sora on the Jungle Slide definitely has a bit of a weird control angle to him, specifically whenever it comes to making turns. Specifically whenever you're coming up on a split in the path to another area or a side path along the way, like grabbing a specific bastard of a fruit in the second part of the minigame, Sora feels like he's magnetized onto the path you were already on until the very last second. It's hard to describe, but if you look real close when I'm getting near one of those areas, you can kind of see what I mean. For getting all 50 fruit, though, we get our final reward here, a power-up. Which, hey, again, pretty good for early game. Should always go on to Sora until you start getting close to those soft caps I was talking about earlier. Mind you, that only really matters if you care about min-maxing at all. I basically didn't pay any mind in the actual footage. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 13, we're going to wrap up some side stuff before heading on towards our next major world. See you guys then.